Today on Cherry Picking, we cam out my daily driver. Just cuz. That's right, today we're gonna test a scientific truth. We're gonna see if we can take an old used cam and try to put it with new lifters inside the motor of my 1966 country sedan. Now this is absolutely just a test and just for science and just because I want to cam my daily driver. So I could not stress enough that you should not do this yourself at home, and that when you put a cam in your motor, you should probably put a new cam with new lifters and or a worn cam with the worn-in lifters it came with. I do not have that luxury, so we're going to test out putting new lifters on a used cam. Now why are we doing this? Well, because I just want to put a cam in my big old motor. I have a 390 in this 1966 Ford country sedan station wagon that we call Stray Cat, that we've built here on the channel over the past couple of years. And well, it's kind of done me pretty good, and the cam that's in it is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Motor runs great, nice and quiet, smooth, even gets 15.5 miles per gallon on the highway. It is lacking just a little bit in the performance area because this is actually a 69 two-barrel 390 motor, which means it has a two-barrel cam and two-barrel springs, which is the lower performance, more gas mileage economy minded camshaft and timing curve. Now, even besides that, it is a 390 and we did put a 4-barrel on it, and I am currently running a 735 Cobra Jet off-the-shelf carb, but I think we can do better with a slightly better cam. So the plan is to put a big whopping cam in this thing, not too big, but just something that gives it a little bit more pep in its step so that we can, really make this thing a fun driver. Well, and what are we going to do that with? What cam are we going to put in this thing? Well, this one, to be exact. This is actually a factory Ford GT390 and 428 Cobra Jet cam. It is the C6OZ-B cam, more specifically. Also could be seen as an XBA cam, whatever you want to call it. But this is a cam that my father had sitting on the shelf that has been used. It has been worn in before, although potentially lightly. And it should give this thing just a little bit more performance. Nothing too crazy, still streetable because it was a stock cam from the factory, but it was a stock cam for the GT390s and the 428s. So it'll be just a little bit more power, and we're not gonna be just doing the cam. Now, this cam, as you can tell, is used. All the parkerization has been gone. It may or may not have been an off-the-shelf cam that was run. It may have come from a completely stock motor. I actually don't know. It came from an old estate from a racer. And the goal today is we're going to test, can you use new lifters with a used cam and wear in the lifters without destroying them and try to make it work. So let's find out. Now, are we going to be doing anything else besides just throwing that cam in here? Well, not exactly. We're not really going to be adding any other performance mods other than we will be trying to put on, and I say trying because we'll see if it fits, an Edelbrock F427 aluminum intake. Now, I actually had one of these intakes way back when, and I put it on my 67 F250, but the one that I had did not actually fit super well on the block itself. This one, however, is a new one that I bought somewhat recently in a whole collection of parts that I bought that were all FE aluminum intakes, and this is one of the ones that I got. We're gonna see if it fits on there, because if it does, then we'll go ahead and combo this cam with that intake as well as a new set of valve covers to hopefully stop this thing from leaking so much darn oil out of the valve covers, which is really the impetus to this entire video, is really, can I fix all my oil leaks? And while I'm doing that, let's throw a cam in it, if you know what I'm saying. Because while you're in there doing all this stuff, you might as well give it some more performance. Now, my original plan was to actually put a PI intake, but it's getting really hard to find those factory PI intakes. So this Edelbrock F427 intake is going to be the closest thing to one of those PI intakes. It is actually a similar casting to the factory Sidewinder intakes, so it does flow pretty well. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. It's got tall runner ports, and it will probably help this thing flow just a little bit better. Now, we're not going to do anything to the heads, which is stupid, and we're not going to do anything to our stock log-style exhaust manifolds, which is really where all the restriction from flow actually happens. In the future, I do plan to put either headers or the factory cast iron headers on this thing, but I don't have those at the moment. So we're just going to be hitting up the cam, the intake, and those sweet, sweet valve covers, which are going to be the factory Cobra Le Mans aluminum fin valve covers. I got a set of these a while back, and they're in really good shape, and not only are they going to look cool, but they're also hopefully going to seal up all my oil leaks around my valve covers. Because if you know anything about FEs, you know that these FEs really like to leak at the stamped steel valve cover corners and basically everywhere else they can. So we're going to try to close them up a little bit and make it just a little bit better and stay nicer longer. Because as you can see, this motor is completely covered in filth. It's been daily driven for 2 years and the oil soak is really bad all over the front of this motor, and that's all just because of the valve covers pretty much. So not only are we going to be putting a cam and intake and valve covers on this thing, we're going to clean it up and make it just look a little bit nicer so that my daily driver can, you know, turn some heads. Now, of course, I totally picked literally the hottest day this week, and the weather is now starting to soar up into the 80s and 90s, so it's going to be a hot one. Probably not a good time to break a cam in, but when is it really a good time to break a cam in? And you know what I'm saying? Now, unfortunately, the science pretty much stops right about here on figuring out whether or not the lifters are going to work and if it's going to wear out the cam lobes or anything like that. Because I don't actually have access to a dyno, which means I can't actually test out how much more horsepower the stock 2-barrel cam is compared to the GT390 428 Cobra Jet cam. So unfortunately, the most scientific part of this is going to be, well, my butt dyno. We're going to basically just use the butt dyno and see how this thing feels and if it feels any faster by the end of it. Obviously, that's not going to give us an accurate representation of what's really happening under the hood of this thing, but it's going to be the closest thing I got, so we're going to have to run it as is. Butt dyno will work. First things first, though, we actually have to take this thing on a test drive and test out how it feels right now, and then we're going to bring it back and clean out the engine bay, really clean on it a little bit because I haven't cleaned it in 2 years since I painted it, really. So we're going to see if we can try to get some of that paint that I painted 2 years ago back. All right. Hopping in the 66 Country Sedan station wagon, big block, 390 FE with a C6. Which you can go watch me put in this car in 2 days on my channel a few weeks back, or months I guess now. So, driving the 66 Ford Country Sedan, it is, well, it's a boat, really. And it's comfortable. It looks really good, it feels really good, and it drives even better than it looks. It's actually a really good driving car, extremely reliable. I've daily driven it for 2 years now without literally any issues. One time I had my starter bolts back themselves out and got stuck at a gas station because I couldn't get under there to actually tighten them back up and it wasn't engaging. But that's literally the only problem I've had with this car. The old transmission did leak really bad and only had about third gear, but it drove fine. Just don't park it downhill, if you know what I'm saying. But this car drives pretty good, so, well, why would I do this? Why would I risk doing a cam swap and potentially wiping a lobe and even worse, getting glitter all inside my motor? Well, just because I want to. That's really about it. I just want to give this thing just a little bit more pep, if you know what I'm saying. You know, it's just because we have fun with these old things. I want to work on it. I like working on this car. It's easy, it's very simple, and it's very fulfilling to do. Plus, I want to stop the darn oil leaks. There are so many oil leaks, and they're coming from every which way part of the valve covers and even some of the intake, mostly the valve covers, and I really want to fix that. So, this is kind of my go-to for actually fixing leaky valve covers, is put a cam in it, really. Swap an intake. Swap valve covers. But, on the stock C6, really gets up there and goes. And we're at 60 already. I don't know how fast that was, but it felt pretty fast for a big boat. This thing is 4,600 pounds or so, and so it's no slouch by any means in that sense. This 390 motor has a lot of torque. It's just not really a lot of horsepower. I think the stock horsepower for this car was, I want to say, only about 210, 215 maybe. The torque was about 350, 370 foot-pounds or something like that, or maybe even 415 stock. They were very torquey. But this 2-barrel motor from 69 just doesn't feel right, because this is a Z-code car from 1966, meaning that it's a 4-barrel car. Now, I don't know if the cams are very different between the Z-code and the 69 2-barrel. I do think they are, but The C60Z B cam is significantly different. The GT390 motors made anywhere around 290 horsepower to 310 horsepower from Ford. That was their rating. The bigger thing is this thing gonna lose a lot of mileage? Well, probably. I was getting 15 to 15 and a half miles per gallon on this thing on the highway when I drove it long distances. It was probably closer 10 to 11 in the city, I would probably say, although I don't really keep track in the city because this thing, I just don't worry about gas. Like, it's expensive, but I enjoy driving this thing, so I don't really think about it. And really, I don't think a lot of you either think about it, especially when you daily drive your car. I mean, you kind of just get used to it. You know what it's going to cost after a while. But it got good mileage, so I'm curious to see what it's going to do after we put this cam in, because this cam is quite a bit lopier than the one that's currently in it, so we'll see what it does. But now that we know kind of how this feels on the butt dyno, torquey, but could use some more. And by the way, this is all with 3.0 gears, so it's not exactly like it's a launching at the drag strip with 410s or something like that, or 411s. Now let's get this thing back home. Let's clean the entire engine bay, degrease it all, try to get as much of the oil off as possible, make it nice and shiny, and then we'll start tearing it apart. All right, so the goal is we're just gonna take some engine degreaser, any type of your choice, and we let the engine cool just a little bit. But the goal is we're just gonna spray everything, everything and anything we can see that's in the way. Now this motor's not too bad, but the front is. I don't know if you can see all that. The front is disgusting. And we've got a lot of baked on material that's actually on the radiator, because the radiator blew up back in May on my trip. It's actually already starting to do its thing. We can see some of the blue already coming back down there. That was all brown just a second ago. Let's see. So, oh yeah, there it is. There's some more blue. So, we're gonna spray this on and then rinse it off and pull it into the garage. We barely fit. We got to move forward a little bit more. This thing's real long. We barely fit. As you can see, this thing is a little bit tight around here, and obviously my garage is not organized yet. It's a long girl. I actually had to lower my CB over, tip it over, and shove it through my roof rack so I could actually fit under here. But we pretty much barely fit in here, but we're in. Okay, now that we're inside, we can actually take a good look at what we're looking at here. So let's take a peek. So as you can see, we are pretty much as cleaned up as we're gonna be. You can actually see a lot of the paint loss on that aluminum timing cover down there. Now remember, I painted this thing about 2.5 years ago, and the paint on the block has held up pretty well, especially considering how much oil and crap is on it. Obviously, we were getting hot in the past. This is definitely more recent, but you can see how hot these cylinders have gotten, these back three, versus this front one, which did not get nearly as hot. But as you come over to this side, you can see the damage done from my previous radiator and all this baked on crap. The engine degreaser did not get rid of this. It is really baked on there, especially because it got so hot, and it's kind of all over everything. This is all from it. My fan shroud, which was nice and black, is now tan. Water pump everywhere. So pretty much the goal is to pretty this thing up while we're at it, because we're already going in there to do all this and swap the cam and the intake and the valve covers. Might as well continue to make it look really nice. So we're probably going to put another coat of paint on the block and on everything, just because we're in there, you know. I'm probably not going to do my engine bay, even though it desperately needs to be done, but that would require taking out a lot more stuff and tidying up a lot more wires and things, which I don't really want to do. But I am noticing now that we're in here that unfortunately there is not a lot of room between where the cam is and the front of the car. So at minimum, I'm gonna have to take out my radiator and definitely probably my AC condenser, which has never been out of this car, so that'll be fun. But I think I'm unfortunately probably gonna have to take this front grille piece off. Hopefully that's all it runs into. I am afraid of it running into our bumper and our lower valance, although I do think it clears. The engine does sit at a slight angle, so as it comes out, it'll go a little bit upwards. But I did drain my radiator last night, and as you could tell by the color of it, the health is not as good. This is recent. This is less than, I would say, I think 6 months old, and it already looks this brown and rusty and gross. Now, I caught it to save it, but I don't think we're going to do that. We're probably going to put new stuff in. But while future Aaron takes this all apart, and you can see the time lapse of me tearing this whole thing apart, present Aaron is going to show you what we're actually putting on this thing. So, what are we actually putting on this thing besides the cam? Well, let's run through it real fast. Right here is an Edelbrock F427 intake. It is an older style intake that is not made anymore. Edelbrock does not make this intake anymore, so they're getting a little bit hard to get nowadays, but they did make them for years, so they are still out there. It is basically a copy of the factory Sidewinder intake. It has extremely tall runner ports, as you can see. It does utilize the older style 64 and older oil fill tube, which went away, I believe, for the 65 model year. So what I'm going to do is, because I don't want to run that, I'm going to go ahead and put a expansion plug in it and basically plug it off, because we don't need it, because our valve covers do have oil fills and breathers. It's in pretty good shape. I got this for $200 a few months ago as a part of a package deal, basically, with a bunch of intakes for FEs that I bought. I bought a whole ton of aluminum intakes. Now, this intake may or may not fit correctly on my motor. I had one in the past that I didn't like how it fit. It was machined kind of wrong, and it fit too high on my 390 that's in my 67 F250 currently. So it actually just blew out the China wall gaskets and had an oil leak that was really bad. To go along with that, the real reason we're actually doing all this in the first place is so that I can run these Cobra aluminum finned valve covers. These are reproduction valve covers. These are brand new, basically. I don't think they've ever been run. They are super clean inside, as you can see. But these are just a generic reproduction. Now, the only reason I'm running these, even though they're not correct for a 66 car, because the aluminum finned Cobra valve covers didn't even come out until the 67 model year, so they weren't even available. However, I'm currently running chrome stamped steel valve covers that are off of a 7-liter, and, well, the stamped steel and the chrome, they just don't work well. I've tried multiple different types of gaskets. I've used cork, I've used rubber now, and nothing seems to seal them up. I think the bigger issue is just the stamped steel. Either mine are too warped, or the chrome is too slick and oil just passes right through it. It's just a recipe for disaster, and they do fit well, they just don't hold. So I've had really good luck using the cast aluminum valve covers, because these don't warp and bend the same way. And so basically we're just forfeiting a little bit of period correctness, because this is more like 2 years later type of thing, in turn for, well, not leaking oil all the time, because this thing actually doesn't leak oil besides the valve covers. That's all the oil leaks it has. It doesn't leak from the rear main seal. It doesn't leak from the oil pan at all. It doesn't leak from the timing cover, especially because we put a new seal in it 2 years ago. It's just the valve covers, and so I want to fix it. So that's the package, the camshaft, the intake, which may or may not work, and these valve covers. We'll see as we go, but as you can see right now, future Aaron is already completely disassembling the whole front of this motor and getting everything off of it, because unfortunately everything has to come off. Now let's quickly talk about the camshaft, because I did mention that this is a GT390/428 Cobra Jet camshaft, and that's literally what this is. This is actually the Ford tube, factory tube it came in, and you can even see the stamp sticker right there. It is a C60Z-B camshaft. This has been sitting on my father's shelf for better part of 20 years or so, and as you can see, we got a big stick. Now, this camshaft has been worn in before. It is not in bad shape by any means, but it has been broken in already. Now, being broken in doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing, especially if you have the matching lifters. I don't. We're going to be using new lifters, which is why this is a science experiment. Now, I'm probably pissing a lot of you off behind that screen going, you can't run new lifters on a worn cam or whatever else you're saying back there. But, well, we're going to try it out because I've heard both, and it might be a wives' tale. It might just be luck. We're going to see and find out. So there is a strong chance I may be ruining the motor in this car and have to rebuild it shortly after this. But hey, it's worth the risk to me because I need content, and if I just ruin the motor, that just means I have more content to make. And then I could put a proper cam in it. But this cam, along with this intake, should give it a little bit more pep, and hopefully that butt dyno feels a little bit more torque on the low end, if you know what I'm saying, and more horsepower on the high end. Now, unfortunately, because this cam has been sitting for a long time, there actually are a few spots, specifically this lobe right here, this one bearing lobe. It does have a little bit of rust on it, not a ton. It's actually, I can barely grab it with my fingernail, so it's definitely more just surface, but we are going to take care of it. I'm going to basically paint some evapor rust on it, maybe dunk it in some evapor rust, clean it really well, and same with some of these lobes. I'm going to take some 4/0 steel wool and clean this thing up as well as I can, because we definitely don't want this thing to have any chance to spin a bearing or destroy a lobe or anything like that. Now, the lobes on this do have some light feathering, which is good. It looks good for a used cam. So to protect this thing, we're just going to put it back in its factory cam tube. Now, the specs on this GT390 cam are as follows. It is a 270 and 290 advanced duration intake exhaust with a 481 and a 490 lift accordingly. So it's not a super hot cam, but for flat tappet, this is perfectly fine, and this is more than enough for a stock build. Remember, I'm not running any headers currently, so I can't even flow that well anyways, so we don't need something huge and lopey because we're not going to get the performance gains out of it. Plus, this is a 4,600 pound wagon. This is just going to give it a little bit more performance and still drive like a stock factory car. So right about now, Aaron is finished pulling all the stuff off the top end and probably ready to pull the old cam out. So let's check in with him. Okay, so it's been a little bit of time, and we've actually got basically the entire front of the motor torn down to the timing chain, which is where we need. And then we just pulled off the rocker assemblies, the shafts, as well as the push rods, pulled them all out. And I just inspected them. They all look really good, except for right at the very front of this left side motor bank is like a dark gray. It almost looks like metal shavings, but it's thick. It's like really thick, and I only noticed it underneath the pad of the rocker shaft. It's actually not anywhere else. It was on the bolt threads and underneath the pad. I don't know what that means. It's really thick. It's almost like it's like ultra gray, Permatex ultra gray, and it's only on that one spot, and I pretty much wiped it off. So not sure what that's about, but I'm gonna ignore it and keep moving on. We're basically at the point now we just gotta pull the intake, and then we can look at all the lifters. And I do have to pull the AC condenser out still. I've been waiting to do that because I know it's not gonna be a fun job, but I guess it's pretty much that time. We'll pop this intake off and take the AC condenser out and see if we could pull the can out. We'll use the new one to actually like get a sense of how much distance we need. So let's take this intake off. Now, I probably should have actually left the timing cover on before taking the intake off, but hindsight's 20/20 or something like that. But I will go ahead and stuff rags in the oil pan because I've not drained the oil yet. I do plan on draining this oil because we're going to put break-in oil in it for the new lifters, but I don't want to taint it with coolant because, well, I'm environmentally conscious, sort of. And they also won't take my oil at the local O'Reilly's if it's got coolant in it. So we're going to avoid it and just try to get it just in the pan because there's still a bunch up top. So let's take this intake off. That always does it. Stick the hammer in the ports and pull up. Now, if you care for your back at all, you really wouldn't want to lift this cast iron FE intake out of here. They're not exactly lightweight by any means. That's if you care for your back. And even though I kind of do, well, you got to do what you got to do. But we will slide this thing forward as far as we can go and tip it. Okie dokie. Now we just keep working it. Brace ourselves and always lift with your back, folks. It actually wasn't too bad. I think putting it in is worse. Taking it out is always not as bad. And we can take our intake gaskets off. And it looks pretty clean in here, actually. It looks kind of exactly how I left it 2 or so years ago. It's not too bad. Let's see if we can get this lifter pan out of here. All right, now the hope is that we can pull every single one of these lifters out. That is the goal, because if they don't come out from the top, they have to go out from the bottom. And I'd rather not do that because I don't want to drop them somewhere they shouldn't go, especially the ones at the back. And man, oh man, do we have a lot of oil pooling back there. Now there's more of that metal shaving appearing. Probably can't even see it. But you just gotta believe me, it's got a little grayness to it. Well, I guess there's nothing to do but to do it. We're gonna take all these lifters out. We are gonna keep them in order because just in case something goes wrong with this new cam swap, we can put the old cam back in and we know it'll run fine. So let's take all these lifters out. Well, may not even matter saving these lifters. Majority of them wouldn't come out the bore. I've still got a few to work on, but a lot of them are pretty stuck. But it doesn't even really matter because, well, this is the second one in on the passenger side. And I don't know if you can tell, but it is very much concave. I can actually see the concave in the reflection. So we're going to check it with a straight edge, but I'm almost guaranteed this is a worn out lifter. And the rest might be like that. So let's keep pulling them out and see how bad it gets. Okay, so I actually was able to get the AC condenser out without any major issues. So it is time. All the lifters are out except for one. I was not able to get this one out for some reason. It just was mushroomed a little bit too bad. They all had quite a bit of mushrooming, but still enough to come out and probably not scratch the bores. And only a few of them were like really noticeable. That first one I pulled out was probably the worst. The rest were okay, but they all had a little bit of concave factor to them. And I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to be like that. So yeah. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and pull this cam out now. So I'm just gonna undo the cam bolt, take the eccentric off, because I run a mechanical fuel pump, so this will be going back on. Our chain actually is in pretty good shape. It's got a tiny bit of slop, but obviously there's no valve train on it right now. It was tight before. A little bit of slop is okay. Excessive slop, not so much. It was actually perfectly tight on one side and then just a hair loose on the other. So it's definitely within spec for me. Plus it's only 2 years old. And we're actually just going to set this aside because we don't need to move it out of the way. Take our cam timing pin out, and now we just have 2 giant Phillips screws, and I do not remember if those are easy to take out or not. So we're going to find out. So let's find a screwdriver that fits those first. Those look like PH4. So for once, I've got the right tool for the right job. I've got an impact screwdriver and a PH4 Phillips number 4. There we go. Got the other one loose already, so now we can just undo the cam retainer screws. And we'll take these the rest of the way out with the wrong screwdriver. Just those short little guys. Don't want to drop them though. And they hold the cam retainer plate. And now we're going to thread in our cam bolt. And the moment of truth, how bad are the cam bearings? Oh boy. Well, this is going to be fun. Might have to stick a... Oh, that's not good. Why? All right. Gosh, I don't want to be hard on it because, well, I might have to reuse it. Also, if these bearings aren't any good, to the point where they've worn in, let's get a... Now this is the part where I repeat, do not do what I am doing. I do not know what I am doing. And I don't claim to. Trying to go on the cam gear. Let's see if I can get on the side of the lobes. Oh, there we go. Got it. Whew. Oh, there we go. Now we got it. Trying to be careful, but oh, that's why. Oh boy. Why is that so tight? That should be coming through right now. Okay, I guess some more. I don't like doing that, but clearly we've got a burr on one of the edges. This, I think this front bearing, oh geez. Well, that's awkward. Casey clicked off in the last 10 or 15 minutes. I'm trying to avoid taking off the front grille off this thing, which I may get away with, but I do have to take off the hood latch because it is right in the way. Let me show you. So if you cut down here, you can see we missed it by, well, I don't know if you can see, but basically missed it by about 2.5 inches or so. So we just need to take off this guy, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is just the 2 bolts front and back. So that should drop it. Yep, that's it. Now, hopefully, I don't have to readjust this thing too much. But there we go. So now the cam should come the rest of the way out. Let me get gloves. So, does it come out now? Oh boy. You're kidding me. I'll take the bolt out. Basically need like an inch, and the bolt sticks out about an inch, so we're gonna see if that is enough to clear it. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. I really don't want to take this grill off. Maybe if I just loosen those bolts, it'll bend enough. As you can see, we are up against the grill right there. You may or may not be able to see. We are up against the grill, and we are at the very end of the cam. We are like partially out of the cam bearings, so I'm gonna loosen those bolts right there, see if I can pull it out. Okay, the easiest solution was actually just to unbolt the little bolts that hold the grill onto the middle supports, because I could reach them with a little ratchet, and then I can undo the 2 bolts that hold the outer supports, and then the whole grill comes off. We just have to make sure to unplug the bulbs. If I get it square in the bore. Ooh, there we go. Boom. Stock cam out. And well, there's a metal burr right there on one of the bearings. I don't know if you can see that. It's right on the edge of my thumb there is a burr. So, who knows? Well, the cam looks like it's in decent shape. It's got a few marks on it, but there's more burrs, more metal pieces. Overall, it looks good. I'm going to go ahead and decode this cam. It is a upside down AU cam. I don't know what that is at the moment, but I will let you know in a second. All right, and I forgot to record, but I just fished out the lifter. I went ahead and put the screwdriver where the cam goes and carefully tapped it down, and then also put this magnet on top of it and just made sure it didn't fall in the bottom of the pan, because that would suck. And this one doesn't have any significant mushrooming, but it does have some sludge on it, so that could be why it was sticky. But that's all the lifters and the cam. So now I'm gonna go ahead and dry fit the new cam, make sure that it actually slides in there. I did check the cam bearings. There are no runs or rivers or gouges or anything like that inside. There is a little bit of a lip on each edge of the front bearing, but I don't think it's very bad. It's very minimal and it's smooth. So I think they're fine. And I think we're just gonna run it and new cam will wear it in just fine. I'm willing to bet those probably are original Ford bearings. So, but I don't see any copper showing. They don't have any heat issues or anything like that. So we're gonna run them. All right, so I went ahead and test fit the new cam. I just put a little bit of oil on it and just slid it in to make sure it fit and it didn't have any major grind issues or that it was too loose in the cam bearings, and actually fit basically perfectly. It was a teensy bit looser probably than the one I took out, although the one that I took out, well, it got easier as it went on. But once it got in, it didn't have any wiggle room or anything like that, but it spun over just fine, so I think it'll be good, hopefully. Now, I did look at them side by side, and you can see the lope difference, but I actually do want to tell you the cam specs of the cam we took out, now that we know what it is, because for me it was a mystery cam, and then I can tell you and compare to the spec, and then I can compare that to the specs of the new cam. So the old cam we took out was a C6AZ-6250, which is the cam part number, -A. The one we're putting in is a C6OZ-B. Now the C6AZ, the A stands for full-size Ford, and then the C6O, O is actually for Torino Fairlane mid-size Ford. They were actually both used in 390 GTs as well as 428s. However, the B cam is actually from a 428 Cobra Jet, whereas the AZA cam is actually just a standard 428. So a 66 428 would have had this cam. So it seems like they did not have two different cam profiles for 390 and 428 big block 66 motors, but this also fits 69 because remember, this is a 69 two-barrel motor. So let's talk about the variation. So the intake events happen at different points. I'm not going to go over the numbers because that part I don't really care about, but the intake and exhaust events happen at different times. The important stuff, the duration. The duration of the A cam is actually a 256, so even intake and exhaust duration, with a lift of 253 on the lobe and 438 on the valve, with an overlap of 37 degrees. And this is noted by, it's an upside down A U cam, so basically AU, but the A is upside down. Now the B cam, which was used on the 390 GTs and the 428 Cobra Jets, is 66, 68, and 66 through 68, and then 68 through 70 for the Cobra Jets. And again, it's information, it is 270 intake, 290 exhaust on the duration, but the lift is actually quite a bit split. It's 278, 283 for the lobe, and the valve is 481 on the intake and 490 on the exhaust. And then the overlap is actually 46 degrees. So this is quite a big step up in performance, I believe, for these cams. And actually, just looking down the barrel of both cams, well, if you look down the barrel of both cams, you can actually see that the lobes on the B cam are actually almost in line with the cam journal, whereas on the A cam, they're actually about an 1/8 inch under, give or take. So you can see the physical height difference in the lobe lift, as well as the duration, because you can see how much fatter and more round the B cam lobes are, as well as their separation. You can see their degree separation is a little bit more significant if you look hard enough. So you can tell these are going to be quite different from each other, and this should have just a little bit more performance to it. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to go ahead and throw this cam. I'm going to actually soak it in some Evapo-Rust overnight because it does have a few pock marks here and there. They don't seem to be bad, but I do want to get rid of them. So we're going to soak it in Evapo-Rust, probably clean it up with some steel wool, make sure it's good to go for tomorrow. And then I'm also going to go ahead and dunk my lifters and make sure I soak them in oil overnight so that we can come back tomorrow and slap it all together. Now, an important thing with lifters, because I'm about to dunk these, got to soak them overnight. You can actually hear that's got to fill up with oil. You want to get all the air bubbles out. Now, I'm just going to put regular oil in, so no big deal. But one of the things you want to check, these have to have a crown to them. They are not flat. That is a lot of times why new cams and lifters get wiped, is because the new lifters, not only are they made of a cheap metallurgy and a bad material, A lot of times they're completely flat and don't have a crown. And you can check it just by taking two together and seeing if there's just a little bit of wiggle movement. Or you could put it on a straight edge. There should be about 2/1000ths of a crown. 2 to 3/1000ths, I believe, is what spec. Someone can correct me. But you need a little bit of crown. Without that, they're not going to spin on the lobe of the camshaft. So just a quick, easy way is check it, see if it's got a little bit of wiggle. And if you can see some light through it, then it's got a crown and you're good. So let's soak these guys. And there we go. I just put some motor oil in it. I think it's just 530. This is not the brake-in engine oil because this is just filling the lifters, making sure they're not dry. The brake-in oil, it'll circulate, it'll be fine. Plus, we're going to make sure we cover the cam in cam assembly lube. Now, these lifters, they have a part number 2083. Nothing else on them. I did have to search them up. They are Melling lifters. And these ones have got to be at least 20, 25 years old because I got them from a guy who hasn't bought parts in 20 to 25 years. If you look back on my channel, you'll see the engine parts haul. That's where these came from. So I basically paid nothing for them, but if you buy them right now, they're about $9 a lifter. They all looked good, so we're going to let them sit overnight. Okay, so it's about 5 o'clock the next day. Last night, we put our lifters and soaked them in oil, and we wrapped our camshaft in a rag and basically soaked the rag in evapo-rust. I still haven't looked at it because all this morning I spent basically the entire day painting parts and then running back and forth to my parents' property, to another property, to the store multiple times, getting parts and pieces because, well, I don't have everything here, so I can't just grab stuff off the shelf. And then I spent another hour and a half or so fighting the Edelbrock intake and basically rerouting all of my PCV and redoing a lot of the fittings on the intake, as well as fighting carb studs that don't actually fit perfectly. The intake, I think, was broken off at some point on the rear studs. They welded and re-drilled them, but they are just slightly too narrow. So I had to go back and forth with a carb spacer, filing in carb spacer out to fit. I'm probably going to have to file the carb just a hair inside the hole. It's literally barely enough to get it to fit. But after all that, we're finally back and ready to keep moving on. We've got the engine painted really pretty nice. I mean, I didn't really spend that much time on it, but it looks pretty good. But it's at this point now we are ready to unfold the cam, take a look at it, see if the evapo-rust did its job on those few places. There's only like 3 spots that were even a little bit rusty, and you actually couldn't catch it on your finger. You could just feel it, if you know what I'm saying. You couldn't catch it on the fingernail, but you could feel it. And then finally, we're able to put some assembly lube on it, shove the cam in, make sure we get it all the way in there, make sure it fits, and then we're going to drop the lifters in, put the rockers and push rods on, put the cam retaining plate on, and then we're going to test the whole thing first, make sure that we can spin it over and watch those lifters spin. So let's throw this cam in and test it. Also, I was plugging the oil fill tube in the Edelbrock intake because I don't need it, so I just thought I'd plug it because I don't want something sticking up and creating more visual problems. And I missed a little bit. If you can see that there, you're not supposed to put your hand in between the hammer and the socket you're hammering on. Just a note. And it is annoying because it's in a bad spot on my frickin' finger. Anyways, so this is the cam. I wrapped it in this basically oil sheet, which may or may not have been a bad idea, because it's actually stuck to the sheet, but we can clean all that off. Oh boy. Also may have left it sitting a little bit too long, but yeah, well, the rust is gone, so actually we created more problems than we started with. Apparently there might have been some water. Might have been some water in that evapo-rust. And we actually created some surface rust. And it's been sitting here all day. Luckily it's all surface level. But I guess we are going to be taking steel wool and probably some acid or something. And spending more time cleaning this up. Even though it was perfectly fine yesterday. I love when I ruin things on accident. And I know you're going to rip me in the comments for it. Oh well. Okay, so I've got this generic Summit cam and lifter assembly lube. We're just going to put this on the cam, make sure it's completely covered in it, really. And then we're going to throw our lifters in. Simple as that. Put the retaining spring or the retaining, put the retaining plate on, and call it good, really. So let's grab our cam. Now, this unfortunately kind of looks worse than it did yesterday, so I'm a little disappointed in that and upset with myself, but really can't do much about it. None of it catches on my fingers or hands, really. So I think a lot of it's superficial, and once it gets some oil and some spinning, it'll be fine. It's just, it's frustrating, you know, when you think you're doing the right thing or try, and it doesn't work out the way you expected. But we're going to go ahead and put this stuff on here. This stuff is thick. This is like Molly. We're going to put a little dab on every single lobe and bearing surface. What seems right. Alright, we're going to set this puppy in. There's the first one. Let's get 2 in there so we can rest it. Alright. There we go. This stuff is very sticky. Alright, and the final part of this, we're going to throw our bolt in. There we go. And we're in. Sweet. There we go. Cam is fully seated. Went in just fine. We're going to go ahead and take these nasty gloves off. Yeah, this stuff is like grease. It's like molly grease. Okay, it took a sec, but I basically just had to use the cam bolt to pull the cam back forward just a little bit. But then I was able to get the retaining pin in, and the timing set is completely on. So now it's time for the lifters. We're going to drop the lifters in, and they've been sitting overnight in this nice little oil sauna. And so we are literally just going to drop them in, and one by one, make sure they slide in nice and easy, and then also make sure they spin nice and easy. Okay, so we got all of the rocker assemblies and push rods back on. Now, if you know FEs, you know that you can't really do this because the intake goes on first and they get guided, the push rods get guided through the intake. But the reason I'm doing this is because I want to make sure that as I spin the cam and the motor over, that the cam is spinning each one of those lifters. Because if you don't see it spinning the lifters and it's not making full rotations, then the cam is for sure going to wipe a lobe or ruin a lifter, whatever it may be. But they all spin freely and very easily for the most part, and very easily. So now we're just going to basically take our big old 15/16 and spin the motor over, and I'm just going to watch one by one. This ain't gonna work because we need oil pressure, folks. So I guess I'm gonna fill this thing with oil first and probably prime it because these lifters are not pressurized yet. They've never been used, so why would they be pressurized? I should have thought of that sooner. I don't know if you could hear, but it was dropping the push rods out of the rocker assembly because there's not enough pressure in them. So they're just collapsing. So let's fill it with some oil. Okay, and the oil that we are using is Lucas High Zinc Engine Braking Oil 30 weight. I have no idea if this is any good or not. No clue. But it's Lucas, and Lucas makes good products, I'm pretty sure. So we're going to try it out. It's got high zinc in it specifically for engine braking. So we're basically just going to go ahead and fill our oil filter, which right now my oil filter of choice is a Sears Time Saver. You know, Sears. Because there might be one left in the world. In fact, they actually, wait, no, they might have closed. But this is going to get changed after the break-in anyways. It is an older filter, obviously. Now, there are concerns about running old filters with the paper insert deteriorating and gumming up. We're only running this for 20-25 minutes before changing the oil, so I think it'll be fine. Again, we're really relying on hopes and dreams and doing everything the wrong way the way you're not supposed to. Because remember, folks, this is a science test. So we're going to go ahead and do the right thing and pre-fill this filter just a hair. And it is actually a shorty filter. Don't worry. The actual oil change, I will use VR1 2050, which is a little bit heavier weight than I actually think I need, but it won't hurt, I don't think. And a actual Motorcraft FL1A, which is the standard oil filter for all 4 old Ford motors. But we will pre-fill this, and because it sits upright, we actually don't have to worry about... Now, there's already a little bit of oil inside the motor, probably about a quart's worth, because we dumped the oil that was left over from those lifters sitting, which was just, I think, 530 generic motor oil. Nothing crazy or fancy in any way. Now, I didn't use the break-in oil because we were going to have extra oil in it anyways, so we're going to be running just a little bit extra oil, which I don't think is going to hurt it, because we need cam splash. And you do that with higher revs. That's why they make you rev it 2,000 to 2,500 RPM. Now we're going to throw this oil filter on, and we're going to double check that the old oil seal is not there, which it was. Good thing I felt for that. And we'll throw this guy on. And remember, this is only temporary, so if you're crying, get over it. And the oil filter that was on here for the past 2.5 years was one of those. And no, it never got changed. We just kept adding oil because it leaked out of the valve covers. And now we're going to just dump in the oil. Oh, this stuff's thick. In fact, we're going to save some for the cam chain, the timing chain. There we go. It's a full 5 quarts, probably closer to 5.5 or 6 because of the extra oil. Now, there's probably 20 or 30 different ways you can actually choose to do this. I'm going to do it with an old drive shaft. And I'm purposely using a corded drill because cordless drills, you'll burn them up doing this. I've done it before, and I've burnt up a few. So I just have this old oil pump drive shaft, or distributor drive shaft, and we're just going to shove it down in there and pump up some oil. And I can watch it. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. I'm seeing spinning. It's slow, but I'm seeing it. And they only need to move a little bit. They only move a little bit each time. But as long as they're spinning, they're doing their thing. I can see this first one. Oh yeah. Oh, thank God. They're all spinning. All right, folks. I think it's time to tear this apart and slap everything back on. And then we can see if it runs. Okay, so we are at the point now where I actually kind of need to set the intake on because I don't want to put the water pump on until the intake is already set so that I can get the water bypass hose on easier. Well, the good news is aluminum intakes are a whole lot lighter than the steel ones. Still not perfect. Still not super light. They're still 30-something pounds. But they're a whole lot lighter than cast iron. Now, I was saying before the battery died, I liked how this fit on here. I did test fit it before, and it fit pretty good. Better than my old one by a lot. The old one stuck up way too high, and this one seems to actually be squishing the cork. So, we are pretty much good to drop these in. All right, well, it's bolted. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up and torque everything, get this thing tightened down. Now, I got to be careful because the way that these intakes are designed with the bolts going in sideways, you don't want to torque it too far one way or another, especially on aluminum intake, because it will snap it. But we're ready to go back to putting all the accessories back on. We'll get the water pump, all the pulleys, power steering pump, alternator bracket, and alternator. And then we can put all the rocker assembly back in, and then we get to put the valve covers on. And then we're this close to starting it, so let's get to it. Well, unfortunately, this is the point where I have to stop, which sucks for you because I'm not going to be able to get it running in this video. I have to leave out of town for the week, or weekend really, and the video goes up tomorrow. So, unfortunately, we have to end on a cliffhanger, which I know a lot of you were probably not so happy about, and I apologize, but I did think about this. And well, even though I'm leaving you on a cliffhanger of whether or not the motor's going to actually start, run, and not eat itself, I thought, well, why don't we finish at least making it look pretty? I still have all the accessories that have to go on, but I think we can at least get an idea of what it's going to look like, you know? So, well, give me a second. I do have to put on this horribly nasty carburetor, dirty, nasty carburetor, but we can at least get an idea, you know. So there's that. Hang on, there's more. We can at least go ahead and set on our Cobra valve covers to complete the look. All right, and this one's going to be a little hard to get in there because of all the AC stuff. And it just barely clears the brake booster. But we're not finished because unfortunately I do not actually have a matching air cleaner, but we can at least complete the look. Oh man, that looks good. I only wish it could run, but it can't. Not just yet. So basically we've just got a dead car again. So now I have 3 dead vehicles that are my personal vehicles. There's plenty more than that besides my vehicles, but my Mustang's dead, my F-250's dead, and this is now technically dead until I fix it. Well, that's pretty much going to be it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry I had to end on a cliffhanger, but you'll see more of it next week, and next week you'll see if we actually can get it running and hopefully get it driving and not ruin the motor. So we'll see. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you that watches these videos. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know. Leave me a like, a comment, subscribe even if you want to see more content like this, or even if you just want to see if this thing eats itself and destroys the motor. Subscribe. And we'll catch you next time on Cherry Picking. See ya.